This is Sick and Wrong, America's #1 source for antisocial commentary. Brought to you by the Reach Around Foundation.
Good evening. Welcome to Sick and Wrong, the world source for antisocial commentary. I'm one of your hosts, D. Simon.
I'm your other host, Lance Wackerly.
What's going on there, Wackerly?
Not a whole lot. What's going on with you?
I got off to a little bit of a late start here. It's kind of busy today, making some preparations, but
Good things come to those who wait.
yeah, definitely. One thing I want to mention during this podcast, I was thinking of using the moniker Girth Brooks rather than D. Simon. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Monocle?
Moniker, a new nickname. Girth
Not one of
Brooks?
those half a set of glasses
No,
on a chain?
no. I just think that Girth Brooks is kind of a cool name.
Just for this episode or from here on out?
No, just for podcast 36 here, Girth Brooks. And if it goes well with the fans, if we get a lot of a favorable response, maybe I'll just change the name to Girth. Girth Brooks.
I think you've been pandering to the audience lately just to get more votes for your articles.
Maybe.
And I think this is just one facet of that.
I
say no.
I guess you could see that. I don't know. So you're
If you want to change your name to that, then just do
To
it.
Girth Brooks?
Don't worry about what the audience thinks.
well, okay.
You're not the audience's toady.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So it's podcast 36 here.
So are you? Should I call you Girth or D?
Yeah, you
Make
can
it-
just call me D, dude. I'm going to keep it simple.
All right.
I know. I
So
just
just
thought it'd
forget
be-
everything about the Girth thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
We'll just let it go. I thought it'd go over a little bit better than that, but. So, as I mentioned before, it's podcast 36 today. Moving right along. And the reason I was running so late is because I was making preparations for my big vacation that's coming up next week. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast in the past, but my father's a rabbi. Have I said that before?
Yeah, you've said it.
Because I know I've received.
I've said it.
Well,
Somebody
we've
said it.
received numerous emails to the Sick and Wrong podcast saying, "Hey, you fucking Jew," or I think I've been called Jew boy several times. So I think I.
Well,
have,
you kind of just sound Jewish, though.
Yeah, I could see that, but D. Simon's not a very obvious Jewish name. Maybe if it was
No.
D. Simonberg or D. Simonstein,
Right. It's
But,
a very non-Jewish sounding made up name.
Yeah. But as I mentioned before, so I am Jewish and my father is a rabbi. And he's a retired rabbi, as a matter of fact. And so now he's working the cruise ship circuit, which seems like a lot of rabbis tend to do that when they retire. And since they don't have a full-time congregation anymore, they just hit the cruise ships. And
they cruise the ships.
they
go cruising.
And then they go cruising on the ship. So my father performs all the rabbinical functions on various cruises. So they apply for these cruises, they bid on them, and the one that he ended up winning this year was one from leaving from Istanbul, Turkey, going to Egypt and going to Athens, Greece. And instead of taking my siblings on, which I can understand why I didn't want to bring my brother along, going to Greece and all that. you know?
Yeah, you might not
Yeah.
get him back from there.
Yeah, I think my brother would have just gone overboard or something. So he invited me, and so for the next 3 weeks, I will be going from Istanbul to Greece, and from Istanbul then to Greece, and for a Rosh Hashanah cruise with the rabbi.
They love the Jews in that area of the world. You guys are really popular.
Yeah, dude, especially American Jews. I was thinking of just making a shirt saying American Jew and then wearing those American flag sweatpants
A big
I have.
Star of David that's also colored like the American flag, or an American flag yarmulke
Yeah, that might be kind of cool. Actually,
with an eagle on it.
As a matter of fact, what I ended up buying today was a Canadian flag shirt, because I think I'm just gonna wear that Canadian flag shirt everywhere I go, or get like a Toronto Maple Leafs hat,
Yeah.
just so I can just kind of walk around and be like, hey,
How's
Canadian.
it going, eh?
How's it going, eh? Yeah, no American here, Canadian, eh? Because then they'll probably love me.
Just carry a hockey stick.
But I do know in that part of the world, Jews are generally well received.
Yeah.
So I told my father, I'm like, Dad, we're going to have to go Jew incognito when we're over there. So, I told him to snip off those little curly things he has hanging down off his ears.
Dude, your dad doesn't have those. Your dad looks like Santa Claus.
Yeah, I know. He does. But, I'll definitely have some good stories from this cruise when I come back in 3 weeks. I'm sure there's going to be many sick and wrong events that happen during the next 3 weeks. But the reason I was running late is because I've been making preparations. You know, you have to buy a suitcase, you have to pack, you have all these responsibilities to do.
Buy some new Speedos that don't have skid marks in them.
Yeah, dude. You know, I've the Speedo that I've been using, I decided to retire because of the skid marks. So
it's got skid marks and then the white crusty stands on the front.
On the front,
it's a wreck.
It's just not very attractive to the ladies. So yeah, I bought a couple new ones, American flag ones.
Nice,
actually, and one Canadian one, just to wear while we're in Istanbul. But the reason why I was running late is because I've been working on my living will, which I thought is a good idea, being that I'm going to that area of the country. You know, there's been like a spate of bombings going on in Turkey. Have you heard about that in Istanbul?
Well, that entire area of the world, yeah, I've heard about that. There's some explosions once in a while over there.
Yes, there's some big to-do happening in Lebanon a couple weeks ago.
But I don't take note of specific ones. I don't usually pay that much attention to them.
Well, no, so someone mentioned to me that there's been all these bombings going on in Turkey. I guess they're targeting tourists.
I guess I'm kind of bad-mouthing Turkey. Turkey's usually pretty tame, you know.
Yeah, but
compared to like Lebanon or Egypt
or Syria or something.
Syria, yeah.
It's not like I'm going to Iran or something like that. But no, I mean, Turkey still is a Muslim country, and there still are terrorist factions there.
Okay, I retract my
I guess some terrorist group has been targeting tourists to cripple Turkey's tourism industry, which I guess they make a lot of money from that. So, I was just thinking, there's a good chance that I might be blown up, or maybe possibly next week you might see me on TV saying, just give them the prisoners back. I'm sitting there with like a black thing over my head.
If they chop your head off, can I talk about that as the final sick and wrong story?
Yeah, you can even air the video on the website. But guaranteed, if that does happen, and I have to convert to Islam and beg everyone to release the prisoners, I'm still going to be and check out Sick and Wrong the podcast. I gotta give some props.
Never give up
where props are due. Yeah, why not, dude? It'd boost our ratings.
Well, my ratings.
Yeah, your ratings, because I'll be beheaded. But yeah, just in the untimely event of my death, I decided to put together a living will, which I think everyone should really have. I mean, do you have one?
No.
So if you die, what happens to all your shit? What happens to all your possessions?
I don't have renter's insurance either. What if this place burns down? Then what happens to me?
Yeah, no,
all my porn collection will be gone.
So is it up to your girlfriend or your parents to decide how you're going to be buried?
I guess it would probably be up to my parents, and they're not particularly religious or, fans of the hospital, fans of hanging out at the hospital for years on end. So.
Well, what about your vast fortune? Who's going to get all of that? That Wackerly estate?
I just assume the bank is just going to take it.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Well, in the event of my death, I decided that there are certain stipulations that must be met. There are certain requirements that must be met. And so I decided to type up a living will. I just kind of went online and found a living will. It's like a living will template here that you could follow. And it says, I, D. Simon, am of sound mind, and I voluntarily make this declaration. I think a lot of people, in the post-Terry Schiavo world in which we live, have been making these living wills just in case, they're rendered permanently disabled or in a stroke or coma or something. They're no heroic measures. So, yeah, I mentioned that a few times here. My desires concerning medical treatment are, if I'm terminally ill, overdose with morphine. If I'm permanently disabled, overdose with morphine. If my penis is blowing off and detached from my body, overdose with morphine. And, seriously,
sure, like the morphine.
I don't want any ambiguity about that. I want them to know if penis is gone, there is no will to live. But the main reason I wrote up this living will, it was for my brother and sister, who I made them sign this living will just because I want them to be certain as to how to dispose of my corpse. Because, I don't want to have to deal with now the rabbi is going to have to decide where I'm going to be buried. Or my sister's, we're going to go bury you in the familial plot. It's
in
not
Bay City.
No, it'd be in Illinois. I think that's where my family's buried.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't want that to happen. So I feel this is the most crucial aspect of this document, this living will, is corpse disposal. So in the event of my untimely death, it's great importance that the following directions are followed prior to my corpse removal. It's the last page. It's Appendix A. Do you have Appendix A there?
Yes, I do have it out here. I have my copy of this living will.
And one thing I mentioned, if my directions are not followed verbatim, vengeance will be enacted from beyond the grave. Now, there's no way I can guarantee that, but just the threat alone, I think, has gravity.
So your sister or brother might stub their toe or something the next day.
No, dude, I'm going to haunt them and their generations. Well, not my brothers, because I think his pretty much ends right there. But my sisters, for years on end, haunted by me. So number one, for part of my living will here is I do not want to be buried. I'm kind of heavily tattooed, so I'm not going to be able to be buried in a Jewish cemetery as it is, because Jews aren't allowed to be tattooed.
Now we know that.
If I'm buried at all, anywhere, vengeance will be enacted from beyond the grave. And you should be listening to this, too, because you're probably going to be a part of the corpse disposal ritual here, Wackerly.
Wow, I feel so honored.
Yeah, so I request that I be cremated and that my ashes be placed, interned. Is it interred? Is that the proper term?
No, that means buried, I think.
No, I think they put your ass. Okay, well, whatever. I don't want to be put in a little.
We don't have a podcast called Corpse Talk. We don't know.
No.
What we're talking about.
Well, I want my ashes to be put into my Screamin' Jay Hawkins album. I Put a Spell on You, and so then I want this album to be on display for a period of 333 days in my sister's home.
The album sleeve you're talking about.
Yeah, the album sleeve.
Are those things ash tight? Or are the ashes just going to be spilling all over the place?
No, there's a plastic jacket around it, so you could probably just shove my ashes inside of that.
Okay.
I don't think it'd be an issue because and just kind of put the album in there.
Right, the plastic sleeve.
The album will be on display for a period of 333 days in my sister's home and then 333 days in my brother's home.
How clever.
I mentioned that no acts of buggery may occur in the same room in which the album is displayed. I think this mainly applies to the time period at my brother's house, because I don't think my sister engages in rampant buggery.
You don't want your soul to be seeing that.
No, dude, no. I think that would just besmirch my name. So on can
I ask a question?
What?
Well, Screamin' Jay Hawkins, I believe, is on the cover of that album.
Yes.
He's standing there in his voodoo garb. Mm-hmm. Will your soul be looking out of Screamin' Jay Hawkins' eyes?
No, it'll probably be underneath his chin because it's like his face. So I guess my ashes will kind of be underneath his chin.
No, your soul, though.
Are you metaphorically speaking?
Well, just your spirit, your soul. Will your spirit be looking at everybody in the room through Screamin' Jay Hawkins' eyes? Because it'd be cool if you could get the eyes to move back to follow people through the room.
That's a good idea. I think I might have to add that to
I'm just making my request now for this type of behavior after you're dead, for you to work on this kind of stuff.
Well, why don't you work on that? Because, posthumously, because I'll be dead, so it won't be that much of a concern for me. But it'd be good to add that effect.
This is turning into a theistic debate.
So on the 666th day, I want my sister and my brother and a fellowship of close friends who will be chosen by them to travel to Chicago, Illinois, which will be on my dime. So airfare and hotel accommodations will be covered with money from my estate, which isn't much, but, it's enough to definitely pay for everyone to go to Chicago and stay in a hotel. And I don't want people to stay, in some expensive hotel. I'll probably put you up in like the Days Inn or Holiday Inn or something like that.
Well, the less people who go, the better the accommodations will be, I guess. So
no,
I'm going
it's
to
still going to be the Holiday Inn.
Going.
It's still going to be the fucking Holiday Inn. Believe me, I'm Jewish. Not that I really care, because I guess I will be dead. But then my ashes will be transported to the L&L Tavern, which is a bar located at Belmont and Clark. And I don't know how many people who live in Chicago and listen to this podcast, or how many people have been to this particular tavern, but it's a great place. You remember this place?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
not where it is, though, but I'll find it in the yellow pages. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's the L&L Tavern. It's just a total dive bar. And so I was thinking the assembly of people will then just drink copious amounts of spirits, liquor, shots, beer, in my honor, and on my dime. I'll be paying for the whole thing. And then at the announcement of last call, everyone does one final shot of Jack Daniels, and then I get flushed down the toilet in the men's bathroom.
The men's?
Yeah, not the women's.
Okay.
So yeah, everyone's just going to have to flush me down the toilet. And I don't really see an issue with this. My sister was, demurring about this detail being flushed down the toilet, but really, what the fuck else are you going to do with a bunch of ashes?
Burial at sea, dude.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. And I spent more than enough time at the L&L Tavern, so it's definitely special to me. So yeah, then everyone can fly back and remember me fondly. And then in terms of all my personal assets, like my meager earnings, the rest of my savings account,
Whatever's left over after this big Chicago trip.
yeah, that can just go in between. I don't know, my brother and sister can keep all that. As for my tangible possessions, which aren't that many either, but like, my record collection, computer, books, stuff like that, list will be compiled. Everyone can kind of claim it. And if there's a dispute as to who gets what, it can be settled with arm wrestling.
Sounds
And,
good.
I want you to mediate the arm wrestling bouts.
Do we have to follow the American Arm Wrestling Association official rules, or can I make them up as I go along?
Well, no. What I was saying is, before the arm wrestling bouts are to take place, you should watch the movie Over the Top, featuring Sly Stallone. I don't know how many people have seen that fine film, but Over the Top is a great arm wrestling movie. In fact, I think it's the only arm wrestling movie that ever came out, work of fiction. And I think you should watch that and just follow those rules. And if it happens that like your palms are sweaty and they're slipping, you pull out that thing that binds your wrists together.
Right.
And then whoever goes over the top can get my record collection. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And failure to follow these rules here will result in vengeance from beyond the grave.
Once again, vengeance from beyond the grave, right?
Which
I
think is important.
I really commend you, D. You put a lot of work into this. Did you do this at work today?
Yeah, I did this at work. It took me
Nice.
about 2 hours.
It's very thorough.
I was pretty bored.
But I have to say, this is a living will.
Yeah.
And your whole purpose for putting this together is if you get blown to smithereens by a terrorist or have your head chopped off by a
God
terrorist.
forbid.
So I think you just wanted to put together just a will.
I guess it's a will, a living will. I'm living, so it's
Well,
my
you're living
will.
now,
Yeah.
but this is just a will.
It's
The first part is about a living will. If you're,
no heroic measures.
incapacitated.
The DNR clause there. Do not
but really,
resuscitate.
But really, what we're talking about is if you're blown to smithereens.
How
How
to
are we going to
dispose of
get
the corpse.
How are we going to get your ashes if you're blown to smithereens in some cafe?
They'll ship them back.
And if the terrorists chop off your head and your arms and everything, how are we going to find the terrorists and get your body in that situation?
Just go burn like a dog or something. Ceremonial ashes.
Okay.
It's not that big
It just
of a deal.
feels like, you did leave some details
I
to
guess
be
there are some
determined.
unexplained details in there, but I mean, whatever, dude. You're a smart guy. Use your imagination. Put the puzzle, put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, I would conceive to probably make your brother and sister go do all those things.
yeah, but
that'd
you,
be my plan.
You wouldn't go to Chicago and drink.
Oh, that I would
on my
do.
dime.
Those are the details that you've laid out. I'm
Yeah.
talking about these unspoken technicalities.
If you ask me, why should a funeral be this somber, mournful occasion? Why not just go out and have some fun?
Yeah, I agree. That's.
I envision everyone just puking over my ashes.
I got to say though, I might, at the time that this was enacted,
You'll probably be crying.
no, I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
might be,
Dick.
I might be inclined to cut some corners. Drink some old Milwaukee by myself and just,
And just
dump
remember
your,
me fondly.
well, and just dump your ashes in the garbage can.
Okay, dude.
Yeah, it's still
You're gonna be off the will. All
it's
right.
still in the spirit of I'm just modifying it to suit the present conditions of my willingness to go out of my way and do anything.
Let me remind you that if I do come back from
It's just
this,
a thought. Oh, right. Vengeance from okay.
let me remind you the vengeance from beyond the grave. But
Sorry.
that's just in the case of my death. But let me remind you that if these aren't followed and you don't commit to this fully, the value of the gift I'm going to get you while I'm in Turkey will drop dramatically.
Oh,
And right now it's
forget
in like
everything
the
I
50
said.
cent range, like maybe underneath $1.
Okay.
You're getting a fucking monkey's paw. You ingrate.
Sweet.
Well, anyway, we need to move on here with the show. I just want to share my living will with everybody because it's the first time I've ever written one.
Right.
And maybe I didn't write one exactly, how you're supposed to, but it's a legally
you're not a
binding
lawyer.
document. Yeah, it's a legally binding document. I had them sign it. And so, yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that. And we need to move along here with the podcast. Before we get into it, I want to mention a quick email that we got from somebody that will also explain what we're drinking right now. So normally when we do the Sick and Wrong podcast, we drink MGD. That's typically what we do.
It's the official beer of the Sick and Wrong show. Like it or not.
In this particular podcast, we're not drinking MGD. And the reason we're not drinking MGD is because we received this email from a guy named Paul. He said that he's listened to all of our podcasts to date, like them all, except for podcast 35, the last podcast.
Thought it was rubbish, apparently.
Yeah, he said both stories were lame, and you guys should forego the beer in acknowledgement of this complaint.
That it sucked so badly.
Yeah. So the podcast was not up to our usual high standards. Having said that, he thinks our show is the best thing to hit the internet in years and keep them coming. So, we take criticism constructively here on the show.
We will honor Paul's wishes.
I honor Paul's wishes. So instead of drinking MGD, we're drinking Jack Daniels. So,
although I did have a couple MGDs prior to the show today, but I don't think that
but
counts.
you didn't know about the email. So during
Right.
the show today, we're drinking a glass of Jack Daniels.
During this show, we'll only be drinking Jack Daniels.
To repent for the last podcast. That's for Paul.
God, he's really going to love this week.
Yeah, he's going to love podcast
So
36.
much better than last week's.
Yeah. So the way Sick and Wrong works, Wackerly and I comb the internet and various other news sources to find the most disturbing news item of the week. The audience votes, and the winner gets a case of beer. Or maybe a fifth of Jack Daniels.
Depending on if the audience likes it
Depending
or
on
not.
audience response. I believe last week I started with my lame article about the pregnant Indian man who gave birth. So I think this week you're up there, Wackerly.
Okay. Last week I did a local Bay Area article about a guy who ran down a bunch of people.
You always get points for the local article.
Which was apparently a pretty lame article according to our listeners. But this
Bring some
week,
Jack to that.
This week is another local one that I am particularly fond of. This actually happened
busting out the locals.
A couple miles from here in Oakland, North Oakland. Firefighters, sorry about that. That was pretty bad, but there's another one. Okay. Firefighters responding to reports of a blaze, a fire, at 5 a.m. near 44th Street and Shafter Avenue. One of my favorite street names in Oakland, Shafter. In the city's Temescal neighborhood, found what they believe to be a burning pile of garbage behind the Studio One Art Center. When the firefighters actually got nearer to this pile of garbage at 5 a.m., it's dark. You can't really see out there that time of night in Oakland. To their horror, they realized that it was actually a woman's body who had been badly beaten and set ablaze.
Oh, I did not even hear this. How far away is this from the Sick and Wrong studio?
Oh, it's a couple miles.
Couple miles away.
Oh, it's close.
God damn, dude.
It's a great neighborhood right now.
Yeah. Oakland's a fine neighborhood.
This woman, burns have covered 70% of her body, but she's actually still alive.
See, dude, right there, that she should have a living will. Overdose with morphine.
She had been hogtied, so she was all tied up. Her hands were bound to her ankles.
Damn, dude.
With a loosely wrapped cloth, and then I've read a bunch of articles about this, and they keep saying, and fixed to an object in the parking lot. You think they would be able to tell you what the object,
parking meter or something?
They never say if it was a garbage can
bike rack?
or a bike rack. They just keep saying an object. So
a hobo?
I don't know. Another burning corpse.
I don't know, dude. We have some creative felons here in Oakland.
Friday's attack shocked neighbors and parents who send their children to Park Day School, a private elementary school where classes start next week, which is right next door to this place. Kids, somebody tries to light you on fire, keep running.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
That's what I always learned.
There was a neighbor who lives around there. They questioned. It says it was pretty freaky that she was burned, said Leslie Doms, who was 40 and holding her 2.5-year-old son in her arms. Doms had been up all night with the newborn, but hadn't heard anything. Didn't hear any type of noise.
She didn't hear any screeching or screaming while the woman was being burned to death.
Crackling flames like burning leaves.
Smells like a fire out there.
And I'm going to go into a little bit of conspiracy theory mode.
Human barbecue?
Or I don't know what mode this is. Something about information and how it's conveyed. But I saw this article twice. They reprinted it on the internet. But the first time I saw it, this quote was a little bit different. And I don't know why they omitted this part of the quote.
Well, did you see in the SF Chronicle?
Well, on
the Oakland Tribune? On their website.
SF Chronicle's website. The first time it was printed, Leslie Doms also said... I think this is funny. Dom said she wasn't concerned because she believes such crimes kind of happen anywhere. No, they don't.
Where else does this happen? Maybe
No,
Detroit.
It only happens in Oakland. Well, maybe
Detroit.
but definitely not anywhere.
Or New Orleans.
This doesn't happen in Walnut Creek.
Yeah, I don't see this
It
happening
doesn't
in
happen
Iowa.
in Beverly Hills or the Midwest. At least
Yeah.
not very often. But I just like the fact she wasn't concerned. But somebody took this quote from her, printed it, and then I guess they decided she sounded like too much of a fucking idiot, so they took that part of the quote out. And if you go look at the article today,
That quote's not there?
the quote is not there. I was lucky enough to have printed the article before they had taken that part out that made her look like a really huge fucking idiot. So this woman, she's about 45 years old, burns over 70% of her body. She's still alive. She's in critical care at a burn ward in a Bay Area hospital. They're not reporting where she is because I guess they suspect that this guy could still be out there and be trying to find her.
Well, someone was obviously trying. There must have been like a hit out on her or something, because you don't normally do this to kill somebody. You shoot them in the head. You don't light them on fire.
They said that her mother lives in the area, and then she has a cousin who lives nearby, I guess implying that maybe she was coming from her cousins and going to her mother's house. So maybe they think that this is just some random attack. Some crazy guy grabbed this woman, and he has a thing about immolating people.
Dude,
lighting
that just
them on
really
fire.
scares me that random, acts of immolation occur on the streets of Oakland.
Here's another.
It's like what you don't only have to worry about getting, pickpocketed or mugged. It's like you might just get burned alive.
Here's another funny quote from a local genius. This guy's Tom Little is the director of the private day school for small children.
Where
that
the
is-
burning
that
took
is right
place.
next by. He says, "As tragic as it is, events like this often bring communities together." Okay, buddy. Whatever.
Get to roast marshmallows.
He then does add that they're just horrified by this unspeakable act, but he sees the bright side. He always looks on the bright side that the community can come together and perhaps roast marshmallows or something like that. I don't know what he's thinking.
Yeah, I don't understand the nature of that quote.
All right, so to close this out and to add to your fear, I walk around Oakland at all hours of the night, drunk.
I've walked back
Stumbling.
wasted, stumbling. Yeah,
Can't even see,
slipping in my own puke.
cross-eyed. Yeah. Well, this crime bears similarities to a June 2004 incident in which a 33-year-old woman was found beaten to death and burned on a pathway that is less than 2 miles away from this. So this was about 2 years ago, almost 2 years and a couple months, that the same sort of thing happened. They never caught that guy either.
Damn, dude, you wonder why people don't want to live in Oakland.
So I don't know if what's the lesson here? Just don't walk around, or
I think the lesson here is move.
or carry marshmallows or when you're walking around, because you never know when you're gonna walk up on a burning pile of garbage, which might be a person.
You know what I think the lesson here is to wear flame retardant clothing while you're walking around Oakland. Maybe
Just
one of those
completely
silver
suave
suits.
in it.
Yeah, like one of those silver
Heat suits. Yeah,
Yeah, I could see that kind of helping.
it'd be hard to drink through that face panel though.
Yeah, that would be difficult. But you could put like a hole for the 40.
Yeah, you could figure something out. Like maybe Carrot Top would come up with some kind of contraption.
So that's rather horrifying. I think I'm going to have to give that. They didn't say why she was murdered. They didn't say if they have any suspects.
Oh no, they don't know. They don't know who,
Oakland's
why.
finest
They don't
aren't
know.
on this?
They don't know why or who did this one 2 years ago either.
Sadly enough, they're probably never going to catch the people that actually
Oh
did
no,
this.
how would they?
Yeah, I
The
don't know.
fingerprints on the charred skin.
Smokey the Gangsta
Yeah.
out there burning people.
It's the only way they would catch somebody like this. Somebody will put it up on their MySpace, like, I burned that bitch. Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. The sick and wrong scale, because a woman was burned, almost to death here. I'm going to have to give that pretty high. I think I'm going to have to give that about a 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9.2.
I mean, Jesus, dude. 70% of her body, hogtied.
Hogtied,
Yeah.
burning. I guess if they wouldn't have found her, she probably would have died. Because she was actively burning when they came up on the scene.
Seriously, dude, this woman should have had a living will.
All right.
That's
yeah.
what she needs. Well,
So let me hear what you got.
we invite you to vote on that, sickandwrongpodcast at hotmail.com. But before you do that, check out my article here for Podcast 36. So, this happened in Wisconsin. Cops say grave robbers had sex on their minds. Twin brothers, friend and a friend, are arrested in Wisconsin after a tip led police to a young woman's grave. Dun, 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 dun. So on their way to dig up a grave in rural southwestern Wisconsin, the Grunke brothers, the infamous Grunke brothers,
those grunkies.
and a friend stopped at Walmart to pick up some condoms, authorities said. Which I just find that sentence to be rather interesting. So
Going to Walmart
on their way
for a
to
huge,
dig up a
huge
grave,
box of condoms
they
at
were
Walmart.
buying condoms.
Probably at a pretty decent price.
3 days later, on Tuesday, twins Nicholas and Alexander Grunke, both 20 years old, and Dustin Radke, 20, were charged in Grant County, Wisconsin, with attempted theft and attempting to have sex with a corpse, which I didn't even know that was a crime. Attempted sex with a corpse.
You'll have to reform your ways now.
It's got to be a new one. I love this quote here, too, by Grant County Sheriff Keith Grovier. You know, that guy's just a good old boy. I picture Roscoe Pico Train from Dukes of Hazzard. He says, in different schools that teach you about bizarre behavior, necrophilia is one of those things that you hear about but never think you'll have to deal with.
That's kind of like everything we talk about on Sick and Wrong. We hear about it, but I hope we never have to deal with any of this
Yeah, I
stuff.
don't think Sheriff Keith here is a big fan of the podcast.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. But I just wonder what schools teach you about bizarre behavior. Do they have like necrophilia schools?
No, I'm sure
sure they
there's probably a sheriff in school that's probably just like the Sick and Wrong podcast, but more geared towards education, what to watch out for.
Just some
and
twisted,
the type
morbid
of
fuck.
stuff you might see, and I think people complain, like that woman last week, that we're desensitizing people, and the purpose of the class that he's referring to is to desensitize these sheriffs to this sort of stuff.
But do cops even go to school? Don't they just take the police test, run around run a mile around the track, and they give them a gun?
There are a fine series of movies that you might want to check out called Police Academy.
Police Academy. I think that's pretty much the.
And if those movies taught me anything, there definitely is a school for that sort of thing.
For some odd reason, I don't recall necrophilia in those movies, but maybe I'm wrong. It's been a while since I've seen them.
There was a gay bar.
And there's Steve Guttenberg.
Right.
Yeah.
Sound effects guy.
So a Cassville police officer arrived at St. Charles Cemetery on Saturday night after a neighbor alerted police to suspicious activity. The officer found an abandoned vehicle parked near the cemetery. Minutes later, the officer saw Alexander Grunke walking toward the vehicle, dressed all in black and sweating profusely. So obviously he had been up to something. After being questioned, Grunke told the officer his brother and Radke were trying to dig up a grave, which I just find funny. So this dude just, the officer's just like, hey, what do you guys do in the cemetery? He's like, oh, we're digging up a grave.
What are you guys
just
doing?
Immediately folded.
What are you guys doing in the cemetery? Why do you have a giant boner?
And sweating profusely.
Yeah, and sweaty palms.
Dude, I mean, I don't know. If I were that kid, I would have been like, I don't know, mourning.
Smoking pot over here.
So the cop then drove into the cemetery to find the partially dug grave of a 20-year-old woman who was killed in a motorcycle accident August 27th in Cassville, Wisconsin. The diggers had only managed to reach the top of the grave's concrete vault. So apparently they had been digging into this grave and only managed to, I bet you know what they probably thought, that it was just a coffin in there and they could just, dig into the grave, flip open the coffin, all was good, and just start fucking.
Right.
But apparently, there's a roadblock there.
Yeah,
called a vault.
Yeah, in modern times, they don't just drop this box of wood into the ground. I think for this exact purpose,
Goddamn amateurs.
To thwart grave robbers. I mean,
yeah. I mean, Wackerly, if you were digging up that grave, you'd have known there was a vault there.
I would have brought a jackhammer.
Well, no, the vault. What? Okay, so the vault is a big concrete box, right?
Right, with a giant concrete lid that I don't think 3 scrawny teenagers are about to lift off the top of this thing.
Yeah, but do you think if you had a crowbar, you could just pry the lid off?
A giant lever, are you saying?
A lever, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it was long enough and, I don't know, you had all types of pulleys and everything set up, you probably could do that. But I don't think these kids thought that far ahead.
No, apparently these amateurs just kind of dug into this grave, found the vault, and that's about as far as they got. Anyway, the cop found them, and then they weren't arrested till the next morning. So Nicholas Grunke and Radke were arrested Sunday morning about 8 miles from the cemetery. I guess the Radke told police that Nicholas Grunke had asked him to help dig up the woman's body and take it to Grunke's house so that Grunke could have sex with it. On the way to the cemetery, Radke said they stopped by a Walmart to buy condoms because Nick wanted to use them when he had sex with a corpse. Which brings up another point here. If you were having sex with a corpse, hypothetically speaking,
Right.
would you wear a
Purely
condom? Would you wear
hypothetical.
protection?
If. Yes.
Why, though? I mean, can you get an STD from a corpse?
I don't know, but I would be more concerned with getting some type of corpse fungus dick.
I guess that makes sense. But you know what's kind of funny is, like, I'm surprised his buddy was just like, you want to do what with the corpse? You want to fuck the corpse? Okay, dude, end of friendship.
Right.
Because I would do that. If you were to say, hey, dude, I want to go over to the cemetery and dig up that corpse, I would be like, yeah, dude, end of friendship. This friendship
Have
is
fun
ended
with that.
here. Yeah, you can go do that yourself. So the sheriff, Grovier, said the three did not know the woman, but had seen her picture in a newspaper obituary. So that means that these dudes, you know, didn't even know this woman at all, but had been cruising the obituaries. I could see how some people, like, you know, try to get laid off at Craigslist. These guys try to get laid off the Wisconsin obituary.
Well, they obviously were thumbing through the paper and saw her picture and was like, oh, that chick's kind
damn,
of
dude,
hot.
that girl's kind of hot.
I can't even do a Wisconsin accent. Just
but-
think of Fargo.
Yeah, something like that. Hey, that chick's kind of hot. Hey.
Yeah.
So the Grunkes are actually from Ridgeway, which is about 50 miles west of Cassville. So they drove
Wow,
50
they took a-
miles
they took an
to
excursion.
dig up this corpse. I guess the officer said that the woman was very well liked, very popular, and people in the community are very upset, and they can't believe it.
There was a line a mile long to have sex with her corpse.
You know, that's what I was thinking. It's like she's really popular. She was probably some hot chick. These guys saw, you know, their picture. I wonder if they saw her picture in the obituary. Like, dude, let's go fuck that corpse. Do you think they had any idea? Like, you know, I'm sure her body was decaying. I'm sure, like, she was in a motorcycle accident.
Right.
Don't you think the mortician had to, like, glue her back together?
Well, yeah, first of all, they didn't foresee the vault problem. They didn't foresee the, oh, wow, she was mangled up in a motorcycle accident. You know, she might not look all that hot anymore. I just don't think they thought it out very well. Thought it through.
Yeah, I don't think this was a well thought out act of necrophilia. Well, in conclusion here, both Radke and the infamous Grunke brothers are being held in Grant County Jail. The Grunke brothers were assigned a $1,000 bond, while Radke had a $1,500 bond for previous misdemeanor charges of resisting arrest. So one last thing I want to mention about this article. So after this whole debacle is taken care of, you know, they've done their time in jail and everything, they're going to have to move out of Wisconsin. Don't you think they're going to have to leave that town? Because,
Well, if they ever want to date.
yeah, I just don't think they'll ever be able to live a normal life after this. Because, you know, those small towns, word gets around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure everyone's going to be
Yeah,
like,
you one of them corpse fucking boys, eh?
I heard of your name, Grunke, huh? Yeah, you guys tried to fuck that corpse, eh? So, on the sick and wrong scale, I know what you're going to say here. They didn't actually fuck the corpse. So there was no corpse fucking. There was no necrophilia that actually took place.
They get points for being complete and utter fucking idiots, though.
The intent was there. And that's why they were planning on fucking this corpse. And they bought condoms in advance. I'm going to have to give this a 7.8.
Well, Girth, Brookstein,
Girth Brooks.
Stein, Steen.
Got friends in low places.
I'll give it I was going to give it an 8.1. I was going to go in the 8s. I was going to say 8.2.
8.2?
Yeah.
Even though the fact that the necrophilia didn't take place?
I give it points because they're idiots and because there's 3 of them corroborating, which just brings it all up to a whole nother level. Like even my story that's disgusting and just bizarre, it's obviously just one person. And it's easy to do crazy fucked up shit when you're one guy.
But yeah,
But getting a couple
3
of your
dudes.
friends to do it with you, I think adds points.
I think so too. Well, we invite the Sick and Wrong listening audience to vote on this. Sick and Wrong podcast at hotmail.com. You decide who gets the case of beer. Well, we need to conclude this podcast here. One quick thing I want to mention is we received more porn from that same Japanese fan, our fan in Japan, Kenji. I'd like to thank Kenji for that. He actually sent us a pretty funny article here. I mentioned in the last podcast that he sent us a bunch of shit porn, like a bunch of shiza Japanese porn. And he said, "Hi, Sick and Wrong. Thanks for saying my name in the last show. Sorry, I forget. American man may be weak at shit porn. So I send sexy res piss porn pics I sure you like better. Sick and Wrong podcast, #1 in Japan. Kenji."
I do like the piss porn much better than the shit porn, but
Yeah,
but
I
maybe
find that a little more arousing. Slightly.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but for the reason that this piss porn has a lot of ladies standing up and peeing, which I just think is hilarious to see.
Wait, women pissing into each other's mouths?
Well, they're all pissing on one particular woman.
I love how Wackerly already downloaded all this porn.
I've whacked off to it like 5 times already.
Yeah, I haven't even had a chance to get around to it yet.
But it's just funny because it's just funny to see a woman standing up and peeing and like aiming it sort of as best they can into this woman's face.
Well, you know what I find kind of funny about this, and I thank Kenji for sending us more porn, but I'm reluctant to keep encouraging him to do this because we're just going to be getting more and more porn, and it's just going to fill up all the memory space on our email.
Yeah, but it's not too much.
Yeah,
it's not to that
too bad.
level yet.
All right.
We'll tell him when to stop.
But yeah, Kenji, thank you, and I definitely enjoy the piss porn pics.
You know, D, we do usually sort of try and attempt to kind of plan out the show, but I did remember 2 things that I didn't talk to you about before we started planning this.
Well, what was this?
That people can check out. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but Baby Suri's picture finally came out. It's on the cover of
You mean Tom Cruise's child?
Well,
kid?
we scooped the picture a long time ago, right after the kid was born. She seems to have developed a little more, and now they have her 3-month age picture or something
online.
Well, it's on the cover of Vanity
Is she
Fair.
deformed?
Does
she look like a human baby?
You can see the resemblance to the early picture that we scooped. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But the other thing, they finally had a picture of the kidnapped autistic. That's my bad handwriting. The kidnapped Austrian woman.
Girl, yeah.
And she's rather hot.
You know, it was funny that you mentioned this today. I was listening to an interview on the BBC that they aired. I guess they were interviewing that girl. And she had no qualms about showing her picture on the air. And I was looking at that picture and I was thinking, damn, dude, I would have kidnapped her too.
She has no qualms. Well, you got to understand that wasn't she like 8 years old when she was kidnapped?
All right, I'd kidnap her now. She's 18.
But I have to pick up on something you said. No qualms about her showing her face in the magazines. How about no qualms about doing porn? Next stop.
Dude, yeah, I was thinking about that. That girl would be a very successful porn star.
And then the next, I'm just thinking softcore magazine. But then, and then next stop after that, Japanese piss porn.
Well, I don't know if she'll go that far.
It's a progression.
But you never know. Once you go down that porn road,
it's a slippery slope.
There's no stopping you. But no, I'm saying that it's like I'm surprised like Hefner or Penthouse hasn't tried to go after her and been like, hey, we have the exclusive pictures of the naked chick. Or the Austrian chick
who is now naked in our magazine.
Naked in our magazine.
Yeah, I would buy that.
I'm kind of surprised. Maybe eventually when we're older men, Tomcat's kid will grow up to be a porn star. Because that kid's going to be a demented and twisted girl.
It also wouldn't be a stretch to imagine her being kidnapped.
Yeah, and held for ransom.
Right.
I'm actually kind of just in one closing remark here about that. I'm actually kind of surprised she's human. I was thinking that he was going to give birth to little baby Xenu, that Scientologist icon or alien.
I mean, she still has plenty of time to develop tentacles and wings and a third eye. Don't count that out.
Did they show her whole body?
No,
or did they just show her face?
Well, apparently it's a big spread, and you have to go by the Vanity Fair to see it. But online,
it's in a magazine.
You just see that. Yeah, it's Vanity Fair.
Okay, but did they show her body?
No. Well, not in the picture that I saw, but I'm assuming
tentacles.
If you buy the magazine, you get to see the tentacles.
She's a mermaid.
And the hooves.
I'm going to have to check that out.
And the fish pussy.
I think I'm probably going to have to buy Vanity Fair for that very reason. All right, well, we need to wrap up this podcast here. For the next couple podcasts, 37 and 38, I will be, as I mentioned before, in Istanbul, Turkey. You might see me on a video being beheaded, if you're lucky. But yeah, Wackerly will be filling in, and I'm sure there's some surprises to be had here.
To the best of my ability, people, bear with me. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, although you might be horribly disappointed, and I don't know which way it's going to go.
Well, who knows? Podcast 37 will be revealed next week. Until then, take it sleazy, and when I get back from Turkey, I'll have some sick wrong stories for you.
Dude, could you bring me back a turkey sandwich?
I could, yeah, I guess I could do that.
All right, great. Bye.